For me, it was always a challenge. The journey began when I was doing Mrityu Dand.
Right. Madhuri Dixit.
Unfortunately and very illegitimately, the release of the film was banned in 4 states. That was the worst thing that could happen with Arakshan.
Controversial lines in the film like Luteri Sarkar ki police hai.
Once I have satisfied the censor board, no authority on this earth can stop the exhibition of my film.
I read some news report that Kareena Kapoor is there and I don't know, Katrina's...
I keep hearing about all these things. सुना है देश में स्वराज आ गया है. भैया आपको कहीं मिले तो हमारे गांव लाना उसको.
क्या बात है. In Bollywood, if you're making interesting cinema, if you're making a cinema with the conscience and issue-based cinema, and at the same time you're making sure that just keeping the commercial aspects of filmmaking into account as well, then you have only one name as of now, that is Prakash Jha. He's coming back once again with the new film called Satyagrah. The promo is extremely interesting. Huge pleasure to have you back, sir, on Bollywood Hungama.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure being on Bollywood Hungama.
Great, sir. And now, you know, when we see your filmography, the way you started off with documentary filmmaking and Tamil, you got your national award. And after that, for the next 2 decades and all, you made very few films. But in the last few years, we've been seeing that you've been making films quite prolifically and all. And the best part is that all your films, they've been talked about and a large number of people are watching it as well. Which is like, I think, a unique mix that you're having some issues, you're not compromising on that, but at the same time, you're just keeping the commercial thing into account. Is there something that you've learned over the years that this is something which is important if you have to say something to the society?
Well, it's obvious that, you know, cinema is a mass medium, and if you have to make cinema which is plausible, which is viable, then you have to keep into account that you have to reach the audience.
Right.
And if you have to reach the audience, obviously you have to make things which they will be engaged with and they will like and they will get entertained. Now, they get entertained either with star value, or they get entertained with drama, or they get entertained with the sort of grammar they have been used to. So for me, it was always a challenge, and it began the journey began when I was doing Mrityu Dand.
Right. Madhuri Dixit.
Because until then I had only done art movies with low cost budgets, with theatre actors as my protagonists. But when I was doing Mrityu Dand, everything had changed in the market and you could not do films for that kind of cost. And if you had to do mainstream cinema, then you had to compete with what was being done in the mainstream. But I wanted to say my stories. I wanted to take up the issues that I was, involved with, or I thought would be engaging, and I wanted to tell the story for common mass audience. So it's a constant process of learning. It's a constant process of compromising, and it's a constant process of trying to be able to find, the razor edge path in which, I could say what I want to say, and I would say it in the manner that you would like to see it.
So your next film is coming up, Satyagrah. The promo has been, I think, closely monitored, as some would say, because you're having quite a bit of controversial element into it. I'm sure that it's not an easy film. And you experienced that in the recent past with Arakshan, that you faced political opposition as well. So do you have any apprehensions कि आपको इन सब चीज़ों के बारे में आप सोचते हैं? Because Arakshan must have been quite disheartening for you, the way it was banned in a few states.
Arakshan, something strange happened. Like, huge controversies raised by certain interested individuals and groups even before the film was released. They didn't know what was there in the film. They had not seen it. And they actually wanted to make political gains for themselves. They were not concerned about the society they were speaking for. And it created a huge kind of like backlash, because, when Mr. Punia started speaking, then Mayawati had to take into action or whatever it is. And it was like, very unfortunately and very illegitimately, the release of the film was banned in 4 states, and there was a fierce psychosis running over it. So we had a very fractured release. That was the worst thing that could happen with Arakshan. I do not know. I mean, I'm always apprehensive, but at the same time, I take care. Like, if I'm making a film which is something which is in the public domain, which is being debated and which has 2 points of views or multiple points of views, I try to keep all the point of views and I try to give equal weightage and I try to be as honest as possible. But then there is a possibility that somebody may not like something. Somebody may apprehend that I may have treated something wrongly, and there may be some controversy, but I will try to, clarify it. I will try to tell them that let's censor if the censor sees the film and clears it out.
Right. Because, I'm saying from this perspective that if you take the promo into account, you're having some controversial lines in the film like Luteri Sarkar ki police hai.
अरे मत भूलना comrade, ये लुटेरी सरकार की पुलिस.
And then ये आज़ाद क्षेत्र है, खाकी वर्दी वाले सोच समझ कर प्रवेश करें।
ये आजाद क्षेत्र है, खाकी वर्दी वाले सोच समझकर इस सीमा में प्रवेश करें। उनकी जान की गारंटी उनकी खुद की है।
These are controversial things, like you're talking about police, you're talking
But this
about
is a
Luteri
fact.
Sarkar. No, it is a fact, but the thing is
But
that
this is
there will
not
be-
my language. This is the
Right.
language of the Naxals.
Right.
This is not somebody committing. Like the Naxals would say, speak that language, and I have used it as their point of view. At the same time, there are counter point of views where, Arjun also says that, बंदूक की नोक पर सत्ता हासिल करने वाले राज कैसे करेंगे?
बंदूक की नोक पर सत्ता हासिल करेगा, वो फिर राज कैसी ताकत से करेगा?
So, the views and counter views have to be put forward. And this promo that you were seeing has been cleared by the censor board without a single cut.
No, I think the promo is very interesting. I must say that once again. But once again, because what happens in our country is that logic नहीं होता है. जब issues create करने होते हैं या फिर जो कुछ भी अगर एक political mileage के लिए.
आरक्षण के बाद तो मैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट चला गया था और सुप्रीम कोर्ट से मैं ऑर्डर लेकर के आया हूँ. अगर सेंसर बोर्ड
Will you take proper precautions beforehand?
Yes.
Because of
If
the
the
last
censor board, I am responsible only to the censor board. Whatever committee the censor board wants to constitute, let them constitute, let them see, let them talk to me. If there is any objection, if I don't satisfy them, that is, I will relent there and whatever. But once I have satisfied the censor board, no authority on this earth can stop the exhibition of my film.
Because generally what happens is they understand that before the release of the film, maybe like a Thursday or Friday, that's when all these hullabaloo starts and the producer is helpless.
It's a very clear order from from Supreme Court that it is the responsibility of the state government and the central government to make sure that the film is released without any hindrance.
Right.
I have got that order from the Supreme
Great. We hope that at the same time now, when you're talking about the entire transformation of Abhay Deol's character, he's a policeman and how he just goes into within the Naxals, I'm sure that as a mole primarily, and how he just gets converted, how the entire Om Puri's indoctrination works, and he totally just comes on their side. And even the Kabir Bedi's character, which is an entrepreneur, and how they just use the system and the police to just for clearing their lands and all. So somewhere, some would say that maybe you're having some sympathy with the Naxalite movement somewhere.
The question is that, if you have had progress in a country where this country's 25% of GDP or 25% of the wealth is in control of 100 families and 75% of the population lives below 20 rupees a day, who will you have sympathy with? It is, if they are fighting for their rights, they are fighting for their existence, they are fighting for something they have been deprived of for all these years of our independence. And even then you want to snatch their land, you want to displace them, you want to never compensate them for what you are taking away from them. You have taken their jungle, you have taken their water, you have taken their land, and such tilted development progress you have got. So ये चीज तो है जिससे आपको सिंपैथी उनकी तरफ होगी. किस तरह से उनकी लड़ाई लड़ रही है वहां डिबेट हो सकता है कि भाई तरीका आपका गलत है, लेकिन आपको ये भी सोचना पड़ेगा कि भाई देश कैसे प्रोग्रेस करेगा अगर हम इंडस्ट्री नहीं लगाएंगे, अगर हम जो हमारे नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज हैं उसको हम इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे, then how the hell are we going to progress? So that is also on the one hand, if we may have made mistakes for the last 60 years, but now we want to amend it. Now we want you to come in the mainstream. You want to work together with us. Now you are not ready to prepare to meet us with us and you go ahead and join the mainstream. And as a filmmaker, I need to bring out everything, from
in an objective manner.
Objectively.
Okay.
Because if you can look at things in a very transparent manner, then solutions will emerge.
Right. What happens that you're saying that 100 families are having this much amount of GDP and other people they're suffering, and obviously they'll have a certain voice and all. But what happens is that apart from being a filmmaker, you've also been a politician. You've contested for Lok Sabha elections twice, in fact. And people will think from that perspective as well that somewhere ये आपके शायद खुद के thoughts हैं, and even though you've tried to be a part of the political system, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं आप ये जो Naxalite movement, which is generally considered on the face of it as anti-law, and maybe in a way you are having certain sympathies for that, because चाहे ये आपकी जो line शुरू में आती है जो ओमपुरी के है that ऐसे लोकतंत्र में विश्वास नहीं करता जहाँ गरीबों की, I'm sure that is your line. That is something that what you feel, what Prakash Jha feels.
ये देखिए लोकतंत्र क्या है, डेमोक्रेसी क्या है? डेमोक्रेसी में कहते हैं कि सबको समान अधिकार है.
Right.
जो बहुत बेसिक टेनेट है डेमोक्रेसी का वो है. और जिस समाज में सबको समान अधिकार नहीं हो, जहाँ पैसे वाले का अधिकार हम हमेशा देखते हैं कि सामने ऊपर रहता है, उसकी इज्जत ज़्यादा रहती है, और जो गरीब रहता है उसको कोई पूछता नहीं है, तो वो डेमोक्रेसी हो ही नहीं सकती। तो हमारा कैरेक्टर कहता है कि मैं उस लोकतंत्र में विश्वास नहीं करता जहां गरीबों की इज्जत नहीं हो। तो इसमें गलत क्या है?
मैं ऐसे लोकतंत्र में विश्वास नहीं करता जो गरीबों की इज्जत करना नहीं जानता।
एक फागो जी करके गढ़चिरौली एरिया में ट्राइबल थे, वो गाना गाते थे और सबको ट्राइबलों को समझाते थे
जी।
और फोकलोर लेजेंड की तरह वो वहाँ पे हैं। मैं जब रिसर्च कर रहा था तो मैं उस एरिया में घूम रहा था, तो कहीं पे जंगल के बीच में मुझे उनकी कहानी किसी ने सुनाई। तो फागो जी कहते थे कि सुना है देश में स्वराज आ गया है, आज़ादी मिल गई है। कुछ 55-60 साल पहले लाल किले से चला था वो, और वो पता नहीं कहाँ गुम हो गया। मैंने बहुत ढूंढा उसको।
स्वराज को उन्होंने पर्सोनिफाई कर दिया था।
स्वराज चला लाल किले से, कहाँ गुम हो गया मैंने देखा नहीं, बहुत ढूंढा, दफेदार के नाके पे, थानेदार के बीडीओ के दफ्तर में, मिला ही नहीं आज तक, देखा नहीं कैसा है, लंबा है, गोरा है, काला है, छोटा है। भैया आपको कहीं मिले तो हमारे गांव लाना उसको।
क्या बात है।
तो आप कहते हो आज़ादी मिल गई है, स्वराज आ गया है, मैंने तो देखा नहीं आज तक। तो ये गरीब आदमी उस गांव में ये कहता था और लोग को लगता था सच कह रहा है। देश आज़ाद हुआ तो जंगल में रहने वाले ट्राइबल लोग जो कि जंगल से लकड़ी बिन के लाते थे, फल बिन के लाते थे, पत्ते बिन के लाते थे, वहाँ के पानी और वहाँ से सफिशिएंटली अपने आप को देखभाल कर लेते थे। देश आज़ाद हुआ, फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट बन गया, सारे जंगल सब जितनी संपदा थी वो स्टेट ने ले ली और फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट के लोगों को भेज दिया वहाँ पे। और जंगल में रहने वाले लोग जंगल में जाके कुछ कर नहीं सकते थे, जाते थे अंदर तो उनको अरेस्ट कर लेते थे, डरा के धमका के उनकी मुर्गी भी उठा लेते थे, उनकी बेटी भी उठा लेते थे। तो वो 60 साल से 50 साल से वो उसमें दबे कुचले सहमे खाकी वर्दी से डरते हुए वो लोग जिंदगी जी रहे हैं। जाहिर है कि कुछ ऐसी चीज़ आ जाएगी जैसे कि माओइज्म आ गया, उसने हथियार दे दिया, बोला अगली बार देखो तो मार दो। तरीका गलत है क्योंकि बंदूक की नोक से कोई सोल्यूशन नहीं निकल सकता।
That's what Arjun Rampal says.
बंदूक की नोक पर सत्ता हासिल करेगा, वो फिर राज कैसी ताकत से करेगा, ये आपको सोचना चाहिए।
Mr. Jha, if you can briefly tell us about your forthcoming film, because I think Satyagrah is something that that will be next from your democracy
Well,
and the fire. You're already having a catchline for that.
The next film is Satyagrah, which deals with the whole aspect of redefinition of democracy, which is what the world is seeing today, whether it is Occupy Wall Street or the riots on London Street or Anna Hazare's movement at Ramlila Maidan or the Arab Springs or the discontent, dissatisfaction which the society today is having with the system.
Right.
And that's what Satyagrah deals with.
You're having Ajay Devgan in it.
Ajay is there.
Ajay Devgan is there, and the heroine, apparently there is a bit of a, because
There
I
is,
spoke to Ajay and he said that Katrina maybe.
In a week's time, I will be calling all you people up and we will be formally announcing all the star cast.
I believe there is a bit of, I read some news report that Kareena Kapoor is there, and I don't know, Katrina's.
I keep hearing about all these things, but let me.
Because Kareena's thing, it was apparent that it's been confirmed. When I read the news report, I thought that maybe I didn't know about that, because Ajay said that yes, Katrina may be part of it, and I don't know.
So there you see. So
You worked with Katrina earlier.
yeah.
So it may be Katrina in a week's time.
In a week's time. Next week I'll be announcing.
Great.